E o tātou mate, haere, haere, haere atu rā. Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians, me ngā Unitarians o te ao. Tēnā koutou ngā manuhiri, nau mai, haere mai ki tō tātou whānau. Haere mai ki te hui o te rānei. Haere mai ki tēnei whare tapu, neki atu i te kotahi rautau e nohu tapu anu. Ko Rachel McIntosh tōku ingoa, ko te kaiwhakahaere o te rā. Ko Catherine Delahunty te kai kōrero o te rā. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Greetings to the mana whenua of this place. To our dead, farewell, farewell, thrice farewell. Greetings to Auckland Unitarians, Unitarians of the world, and to our visitors. Welcome to those in the building, those on Zoom, and those who will watch us at a later time. Welcome to our whānau. Welcome to this space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for more than 124 years. My name is Rachel McIntosh, and I am leading our service this morning. Catherine Delahunty, lifelong social justice advocate, environmentalist, anti-mining activist, upholder of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, parent, grandparent, partner, and my friend of more than 25 years, as our speaker today. Welcome also to you, Catherine. For those of you in the building, please join us after the service for morning tea. It is our sacrament of hospitality. Ma mua ka kitea muri, ma muri ka ora mua. Those who lead give sight to those who follow. Those who follow give life to those who lead. For my opening words, I have a poem called West Papua, A Free Man's Dream, by Crystal Selwood Juffa. What would life be for I, her, him, and we? We the tongue-tied and empty. We the rich with land, poor by hand. We the dead man breathing. We the boneless men, cutting teeth with ignorance, slitting throat with promise. Countless weep. Hush, my child, you are not sin. Hush, child, do not fear. Freedom is not in skin. Freedom is not in bone. Freedom, my men, my women, we. Freedom rests in heart. Freedom rests in soul. Freedom we carry when we wake. Freedom we hold when we birth. Freedom we share in blood. Freedom we have in our tears. Freedom we have when we dream, but freedom rests with us. Paul, would you mind lighting the chalice for us? My words for the chalice lighting are, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are this flame, ancient as the stars, new as the vulnerable spark. We are not alone. We are this chalice, rimmed by the spiral dance of searching. We are not alone. We are the light soaring, the shadow deepening, the dance between them. We are not alone. We are the heirs of the people and their fires, the healers and their circles. We are not alone. We are here. We are here for ourselves. We are here for each other. We are here for those we do not know. And we are not alone. Please take a moment to close your eyes. Breathe in the possibility of tomorrow. Breathe out what is done. Thank you. I now invite you, if you wish, to say with me the covenant of our congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. We pause at this time to share the personal joys and sorrows of our congregation. Those of you in the building, if you come to the front, light a candle, say your name and briefly share your joy or concern, or you can simply light a candle in silence. And those on Zoom, if you raise your hand and I will call on you as I see you, and for those in the building, they will magically appear on the screen as they speak. Our reading this morning is called The Buddha, the Angry Man, and the Gift. After many days of travel, Buddha arrived at a small town to give a speech. Everyone was happy to see him, except one young man. While Buddha spoke, the man was shouting at him. Buddha did not pay any attention and continued speaking. This infuriated the young man even more. He walked directly in front of Buddha and continued to ridicule him. "You have no right to teach others. You are stupid and you're a fake." The crowd began to react to this young man's caustic behaviour. Buddha stopped the crowd from turning against him and said, "It is not always necessary to counter aggression with aggression." Instead, he turned to the man and asked, "If you buy a gift for someone and that person does not take it, to whom does the gift belong?" The young man was surprised by the question, thought for a moment, and answered, "It would belong to me because I bought the gift." The Buddha said, "Correct. It is the same with your anger. If you become angry with me and I don't feel insulted or accept your hostility, the anger falls back on you, as it was initially yours to give. You are then the only one who becomes unhappy, not me. All you've done is hurt yourself." The young man understood, clasped his hands together, and slowly bowed to the Buddha. By this bow, he acknowledged that he had learned a valuable lesson that day. And so the Buddha concluded, "As a mirror reflects an object, as a still lake reflects the sky, take care that what you speak or act is for good. For goodness will always cast back goodness, and harm will always cast back harm." Now please take a moment again to close your eyes. Breathe in the possibility of tomorrow and breathe out what is done. It's now my great pleasure to invite Catherine Delahunty to come and speak to us. The title is West Papua, Justice for Our Neighbours.
Nā mihi nui ki te mana whenua o Tamaki Makaurau, Ngāti Whātua ki o Rākei, me iwi katoa. Mā nihimui ki te tanga te tiriti, nā mihi nui ki te whānui o Unitarians. It's great to be back here. I just want to acknowledge the passing of Sharon Hawke, a great citizen of Tamaki, of Ngāti Whātua, the daughter of Joe Hawke, leader of the struggle at Takaparawhau. My kōrero is about struggle and justice, but one that you may not know as much about as you may know about what I just spoke of. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge this place and this church, these people and my friend Rachel, but also Clay. And many of you would have known Clay, who was Rachel's husband, the previous pastor, and a man of great dignity, commitment, and warmth. And we will not forget, all of us who knew Clay, what Clay brought into this world and what his strength gave to many of the issues that we work on, including being in this church with him one day when it was a sanctuary. I wasn't brought up a Christian, I was brought up a communist. It's another religion, and quite fundamentalist in our case. All have things to teach and things that one struggles with. But I remember that day because I saw a living commitment that day that the Indian people were able to find sanctuary here. I could see point to a church, which I hadn't really understood before. So for me, there's a point to a church because it's a place for building community, but also for living values. And living values cannot be done without action. So today I'm going to talk about my good friends from West Papua. And I just want to say that there's so much I could say, so I'm going to get Gordon to wave at me when it's time to shut up. But first, my partner Gordon and I drove up this morning from the Ngāti Maru lands in Hauraki, otherwise known as the Coromandel. We live in the Koiranga Valley behind Thames in a beautiful valley with a beautiful river, where Rachel and I have had many happy chats sitting in the river. And I have spent most of my life working on social justice and probably from about the age of 30 on environmental justice and te tiriti justice as well. But this issue has taken me by surprise. And one of the things this issue has taught me is the quality of invisibility has a huge impact on what people choose to see as a social justice issue. And when something is invisible, it is not seen, people don't know about it, there isn't a sense of community. For those of us working on West Papua here in Aotearoa, is a sense of loneliness, as well as a very small community, because so few people know about our neighbours. Many of you probably have participated in some of the work for peace in Palestine and free Gaza and the tragedies of the war being visited upon it by Israel and by the United States of America and their allies. And everybody can say that Palestine, there is no disputing that Palestine is a genocide. But there is a genocide happening in our neighbourhood. Now, genocide is one of those flash words, and because I was a politician, I had to learn what some words mean, and certainly I had to learn how to deal with what words don't mean and what promises can be broken. But the word genocide has several meanings. One is an obvious physical, literal genocide when you absolutely set out to kill everybody in a place. And there's no doubt that Gaza is a genocide. And as are other parts of our history, as was Hitler's Nazi Germany was a genocide against disabled people first. Disabled children were the first in the genocide. Communists, gypsies, Roma people, and of course the vast, vast majority were in fact the Jewish people who had to bear that terrible experience and the burden of it. And it's interesting to me how we can experience something but not always understand when we are in a different position that we could be those people, we could commit genocide. West Papua is experiencing what they call structural genocide. So structural genocide means it's not like every day they're being bombed, although they are being bombed in the highlands at the moment, in the villages of West Papua. But it's when there is a a definite campaign to destroy an entire community through a range of structural means. And I'm just going to tell you about it so that you know about it. How did I get involved in this city? I was a member of Parliament, and my great friend Marty Ledbetter, who you may have heard of, a great peace activist and researcher, invited me to meet somebody. And I don't know about you, but when you meet somebody, truly meet somebody and feel what they have to say to you, you can't forget it. And I met a West Papuan friend of mine who became like my family, called Paula Makabore, who was over here talking about this issue. And once I'd met Paula, that was it. I was in. Because the quality of our relationships determine the quality of what we can do. That's something I learned from Tangata Whenua, but the quality of our relationships does require feeding. And one of the problems with West Papua is there's a media ban, so you are not allowed as a journalist, external journalist, to go over there and report as you like. And if you're a journalist inside West Papua, it's very difficult to get the stories out. For once, one can bless the mobile phone, because actually the people of West Papua do get their stories out through digital means. But this country is the northern end, and I'm not going to assume that everybody's heard of it, because I mainly find people don't know the difference between Papua New Guinea and West Papua. So the islands of Papua New Guinea colonised by the Dutch. After the end of World War II, the country was cut in half. Australia eventually granted independence to Papua New Guinea, and West Papua was colonised by the Dutch until 1960s, and they were about to recognise West Papuan right to independence when an American called John F. Kennedy told them to back off. And so all the training, this is, John F. Kennedy, great hero, blah, blah. This man, as much as anyone, is responsible for the genocide that's happening in West Papua at the moment. Because he said to them, we want a buffer against communism. Indonesia wants West Papua. We want Indonesia to be our ally. So they must have West Papua. The other reason the Americans were keen on West Papua was this place called Freeport in North America, and there's a mine, and one of the biggest copper and gold mines, in fact, probably the biggest on the planet, in West Papua, called Freeport McMoran. It's now owned mainly by the Indonesian government, but originally by an American company called Freeport McMoran, and the destruction of that mine is next level. However, what happened was the Indonesians then militarily, with the permission of the United Nations and the fake referendum that took place in the early 60s there, where at the point of a gun, 1,000 people were chosen and forced to vote for Indonesian colonisation. Indonesia has colonised West Papua, with the absolute silence and the absolute collusion of every Western country you can think of. The only allies in the world who stand up for West Papua are some of the African nations and the Caribbean islands and the Pacific nations, which Aotearoa is one, but we have no way to hold our head up on this issue. So most citizens don't know about what happened, but this colonisation is still happening. And this colonisation is because of natural resources, which is basically what most colonisations are for. This is a colonised country. We were Britain's farm. They came to get land. Australia also. And so we come from that colonial tradition, which sometimes helps us not see the colonisation in our own backyard. And although there's no media, there's a lot of social media, but there's a lack of curiosity in this country about the Pacific. Many people see the Pacific as somewhere they go for holidays. It's beautiful, blah, 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 golden beaches, blah, blah, blah. But actually, the Pacific is suffering many forms of colonisation that are ongoing, and West Papua is the most egregious and violent one. So at the moment, there is continual violence, bombing in the highlands, there's continual torture of political prisoners. There's an armed struggle, but there's also a huge non-violent struggle. We mainly work with the non-violent people over in West Papua, but I'm not going to judge people who take up arms to defend their village against multinational capitalism and the Indonesian military. The Indonesian government is now headed by a former terrorist who led one of the death squads in West Papua, President Prabowo Subianto. The president is one of those people. So there's not a lot of easy answers here. But what you need to understand is that these are our neighbours. They're an hour north of Darwin. And most people don't even know that they're experiencing this genocide. It's not only a genocide, it's an ecocide. So last month in Auckland, we organised our group, the West Papua Action Tamaki, organised a forum on West Papua, and we brought out some filmmakers who, with a film that I intend to show to as many communities, congregations and groups that we can, about the ecocide in the southern part of West Papua, because they're destroying the lungs of the Pacific. So this country is a beautiful country. This country is one of the last surviving rainforests in the Pacific. Huge, huge rainforests are being destroyed for palm oil, and the biggest byproduct of palm oil is palm kernel expeller, and that is used widely in New Zealand agriculture. So our farmers feed this PKE, as it's called, to our cows when they haven't got enough feed for winter, and it's cheaper than growing food crops for those for their animals. And we have a vast dairy industry relying on PKE, which is being produced from a genocide. So Maroki, this one of the areas, is completely devastated. They're cutting down rainforest every single day. And if you're a lover of biodiversity and wildlife, you'll know that the bird of paradise is the symbol of West Papua, because they have the most extremely amazing ecological wonders of the world, many of which Westerners don't have names for, because we don't think that things are real until we name them. So there's much to protect, and there's much to love about West Papua. And unfortunately, because of the media ban, because of the collusion of the West, there's a silence that most people aren't aware of, which means that people don't understand that these people are suffering from starvation sometimes. 160,000 displaced people. Now, if you heard that there was 160,000 displaced people in Samoa or in anywhere else in the Pacific, you might, because you've got a framework for Samoa, because we have a huge Samoan community here in this city, you might have some comprehension. But when I say 160,000 people displaced in West Papua, it's not real to people. And our job in the group that I'm in is to try and make it real. And one of the ways we do that is we want to show this movie because it's an incredible movie about the destruction and also the corporate multinational collusion with these people who own the government of Indonesia. My hope lies with young Indonesians. There's some wonderful young Indonesians, and they are beginning to learn, much as Karakia did, that, and are still doing, because I teach this every day. Karakia is still learning that actually the history that we've been taught about the world is not true, and that the West is not a civilized, wonderful site of incredible knowledge and wisdom. It has those things, but it is many of those things they have stolen. And my favourite moment this week was when the mayor of New York, the wonderful Zohan Mandami, demanded that Prince Charles give back the diamond. So, I'm going to uphold him when he gives back the diamond. Like, the thing is, we can talk, but we have to act. And my passion for West Papua comes from knowing very, very simple things. And one of them is this flag. So this is the flag of the Free West Papua. It's a little bit like the Cuban flag. It's called the Morning Star. And if they fly the Morning Star in that country, they go to jail. One of their great leaders, Philip Kama, who was sort of a Nelson Mandela non-violence leader, he went to jail for 11 years for this flag. Every week in West Papua there are atrocities, particularly the killing of children and women and villages, because when there's any kind of armed resistance, it's the citizens that pay, as well as the army. And most people learned a little bit about West Papua last year when Philip Mertens, was it the year before? My years are getting blurred as I get older. But Philip Mertens, a New Zealand pilot working for an Indonesian airline called Suzy Air, got kidnapped by a bunch of people who come from the army, the OPM, TPNB in West Papuan freedom fighters. And there was a long negotiation, which many of us were part of, and he was safely recovered. And what I loved about my friends in West Papua is that there were people who worked so hard because they believed in non-violent solutions, and they did not disrespect their own army who are fighting for attention. And man, they got it. They got attention because a white man was involved. And what we learned from that is one white life is worth far more than 160,000 Papuans. And I'm very glad that Philip Mertens survived that experience and was set free. But mainly for him, but also for the fact that if he hadn't, it would have closed a whole lot of political doors that we fight to keep open. The governments of this country actually know about this issue. They not the individual MPs, many of them take no interest in it. But when I was in Parliament, we had a cross-party support group for West Papua. So it's actually not that they don't know. I'll never forget the day. How's my time? You keep an eye on me. I'll never forget the day that I was in the lift at Parliament with Chris Finlayson, the former Treaty Negotiations Minister and Attorney General, and I had this flags as a sticker on my house box. So when you go to the house every day, you have a box with all your papers in, and you're not supposed to put anything on it, but I had a West Papua sticker, and he said to me, "Oh, is that the Cuban flag?" And I said, "No, it's the West Papuan flag." And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, poor bastards." He knows. They all know. But they want a relationship with Indonesia. So, don't tell me the moral arc of history bends to justice. It only bends to justice if we make it bend and not be silent in the face of this kind of injustice. And so I raise the issue in Parliament constantly, but the bigger issue is the people of this country need to understand the issue so that we can demand change. Now, next year, the Pacific Island Forum, which includes Indonesians as observers, they forced their way in, and West Papua don't have full status at the Pacific Island Forum, will be in Auckland. So watch this space, because we intend to take an active role in this situation. And we have some allies and good friends, like my friend Te Anau Tuionu, who's a Green MP, is very committed and helps us a lot with this issue. Not many others, but I have never met an issue where there's so much violence going on so close to this country and nobody has any understanding of it, or very few people. So I don't judge that people when you don't know, because you try to deal with the media over this issue, and the only time we got media was when the white man was involved. So there's only a few media, but I would recommend, if you're interested in this issue, follow Radio New Zealand Pacific. So Radio New Zealand Pacific, and particularly a journalist called Johnny Blades, have been following this issue for years and years and years, and they will always talk to us and always talk to the Papuans. And when we had the forum in March, we had 5 guests from West Papua. We took them up to meet Alec Hawke, Joe Hawke's brother, from Ngāti Whātua, because this is an Indigenous people's issue. One of the reasons that it's ignored is because these people are brown. And the Indonesians like to call them, dehumanize them and call them animal names. And you know that othering is a powerful tool, and if you can make people less than human, then you can do to them what you would never accept for your own people. So we have to be really aware of this issue. Is about racism, it's about ecocide, it's about the Western powers colluding with the political interests of Indonesia for trade reasons. It's about some military exchanges between our country and Indonesia. They're not big, but they still happen, that we train a couple of their people. We've had brave people go in there and actually challenge those programs, but they have to go in undercover. My friend Paul Bentzman went into West Papua pretending to be a bird watcher and actually helped to document a program of New Zealand police supposedly training something kind of obviously neutral, like the Indonesian police. Now, the Indonesian police are huge part of the problem. They're extremely violent. And Paul got that story out, I worked with him, and we killed that program. Now, I'm proud that we did that, but that's a tiny thing. Our whole country in our neighbourhood is bleeding, literally. And silence is the most terrible thing when you see that happen. So what I'm asking today is just that you take an interest. So I know there's a million causes, but whatever you decide to do, look at our neighbourhood and start with some sense of responsibility. Like, I would never stand up for West Papua and not for Te Treaty rights. I would never do that, because there's no difference. West Papua is simply like Aotearoa 1863. And if you know the history of this country, And it's important that we learn it and pass it on. 1863, the same things happened to Aotearoa are happening right now to the whenua and the people of West Papua. I could go on a lot longer, but I'm not going to, because I think it's quite overwhelming. But I just want to thank you for listening, and to be in a space where I know people actually don't have to have justice explained to them is always a real privilege. And I know that your sincerity and courage is embodied in the Unitarian philosophy, but we need help here. We need you to raise this if you're in an election meeting. We need you to inform yourselves, and there's lots online about it now. You just Google West Papua and you'll find it. And also we have a Facebook page, but I don't think we're on TikTok, but possibly not all of you are on TikTok either. Just saying. But I just wanted to finish with where I started, which is the quality of our ability to stop this genocide depends on the quality of our relationships with the West Papuans and with each other in solidarity, and making solidarity mean something by our willingness to understand this issue, take on something that is very, very hard. And you know what? I have never seen more joyous people. And I have never laughed so much as when I'm with my Papuan mates. They tried to teach me how to dance. It was a terrible mistake. But I can't do Papuan dancing. But this ancient and rich culture is full of people who want a peaceful solution and want to share their country with the world. They just do not want capitalist colonization and genocide. Thank you for listening.
I invite you again to take a moment to close your eyes. Breathe in what you've heard. Breathe in the possibility of tomorrow, and breathe out what is done. Thank you, Paul. Can I ask you to extinguish the chalice? And I invite you to say the words with me if you choose. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Before morning tea, I invite you to form circles of no more than 6 people to discuss these questions. What did you learn today, and how will it affect what you do to live our values of justice and interdependence? Brief closing words. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when?